Hello everyone, welcome to twitch.tv/HeroForge. We are so excited to show you this incredibly rad sneak peek. You know us, you love us. If you do not know us, you're gonna love us anyway by the end of this stream. But if you do not know HeroForge, we are a completely free in-browser platform. You go, you build a bunch of little guys, and now we are going to demo something where if you thought you could build lil guys before? Oh, we are gonna blow your mind with our lil guy capacity. But before we get into that, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Anica. I am the content producer for live video content at HeroForge, and my pronouns are they, she. Maverick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, hello. I'm Maverick, he, him. I'm one of the programmers here at HeroForge. I work on a lot of the tools that you see on our character creator here every day.
Hey, I'm Teagan, he, him, the CEO and one of the original founders of HeroForge. And sometimes I work on development of the site, but generally I'm just running the company at this point. We make a lot of stuff now.
We make so much stuff, and we make so much stuff for y'all to make so much stuff. I know we just did a sneak peek stream recently of Face Customizer, and people were like, what is coming next? And we're about to tell you. Let's talk about kitbashing. So let's get into what we have on screen right away. Maverick, this just looks like a simple bird to me. This looks like a beautiful, absolutely beautiful, simple bird.
Why, yes, that's exactly what this is right here. So this is just a Raven character that we got created on the site. This is just made with all the normal HeroForge tools that we've had for all of our character creation. And then we have other stuff that we can now add on top of it with the kitbash functionality right here. So what I actually have is a version that I've already kitbashed on top of right here.
People in chat are saying Jarnathan. It does look like Jarnathan. Yes, that's true. Yeah, as folks know, we've had a little bit of a hiccup today. So as we continue to work on kitbashing, there's just sometimes, you know, sometimes you're just a little moody. I can relate to that, and sometimes the site does that too. So do not stress about it. Mel is asking, how many humanoids can I place on the base? Mel?
Eventually, a lot.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So,
all right. So here's that same Raven now with wings that we've added on with this, with everything done with kitbashing. So these wings,
the most dangerous possible wings.
Yeah, the most dangerous
very
wings.
Dangerous.
So these wings are just made out of a combination of a whole bunch of individual objects. These are all just individual knives themselves. You can see I can take them out. We got actual pieces of the wing itself right here. And these are all just combined together and whatnot. All this has a nice hierarchy over here on the side for all of our pieces that we can add to the site. All this basically is done is from adding individual objects that we have over here. So say, for instance, we want to add another sword. We bring that into the scene just like that. We've got this nice new sword, and you just go around, place it wherever you want.
Mr. D-Sir in chat saying there is a sharp look right there. Thank you, Mr. D-Sir. That is the most important feedback we've gotten. Sorry, Teagan, what were you going to say?
I love that the general premise of kitbashing is you can add whatever you want. Like, you can add all sorts of things to the model. But we're like, what if we just added many, many of the same things? It's all knives. It's all knives all the way down. And a sword, you know, which is just a large knife if you really think about it.
Oops, all knives. It was a breakfast cereal that didn't take off for some reason. No one knows for sure. So a big piece of feedback that we're seeing in chat right now is someone was like, I thought it'd be like 5 objects, you know, like maybe I can move the shield over here. It's everything on the site, right? Everything?
Yeah, so
that's a great question.
So just about everything on the site can be used in kitbashing as well right now. Our menu is pretty clunky right now as we are in development, but this is just basically all of our items, objects that we have are essentially going to be planned to be features on the site. Any of these are selectable, addable to the site menu, bring them in, drop them around however you'd like.
We have Winthin in chat asking, Winthin, friend of the stream, most incredible custom color maker on HeroForge. Winthin is asking, I was curious about where the limit is, and in the words of Mean Girls, the limit does not exist. That's actually not true, I just wanted to say that. Where are the limits?
I should step in at this point.
I just wanted to quote Mean Girls. There are some limits, yeah, sorry.
So we want there to be as few as possible, but especially at first, on the initial like release of Kitbashing. We're going to try to limit the number of objects you can put in the scene, just to limit the number of problems we have with customer service and the number of crashes. And as time and refinement goes on, we'll kind of open up some of those constraints. But I'd say that this is already kind of Pandora's box of possibility when it comes to miniatures. For those who aren't familiar, kitbashing as a term comes from model kits. So you'd have like your model kit with all the little pieces that you'd cut out and you'd glue together, and you'd bash those together to create entirely new things in ways that they weren't originally intended. And in keeping in that like spirit of old, this is essentially digital kitbashing, and you can take the entire library of pieces on Hero Forge, sans some specific things, and add them to the model in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. Though we'll probably have a part limit at launch that will preclude this many knives.
Yes, this is definitely an extreme example. There are a lot of knives in here. The biggest limitation for most of this stuff just comes down to a lot of just the performance performance issues, because we're really letting you add a whole bunch more objects than were ever intended for the site. So you can definitely bog down performance a lot if you go really excessive. So we're trying to make sure that the entire site stays usable for a lot of this, but we will definitely try to make sure it's as open as we can. For a lot of the stuff as well too that we have, all these are objects itself. If you saw me lift earlier on, I can lift. Let me go down to the other wing. I can lift entire wings, and these are all created together because credits to one of our coworkers, Luke here, has worked on this nice, awesome feature of you can take any object that you have. So say a knife right here. If you see that's actually linked to this wing right here, we have basically a linking tool that you can select. And so now I have this in link mode and I can select it to anything over here. And now this object is now linked. So if I move, so if I move the whole object, I got to find the top hierarchy. It'll move it all together as one unit. What's even cooler than this as well too, if you see there's a connection point going to the shoulders that we have here as well. Let me reload the menu so it's nice and fresh. All of this can actually be linked or automatically to joints on the characters. So the wings themselves, if you look, that I go in a pose menu and whatnot now, and go to advanced posing. If I start to move the wings, the kitbash components move with it. So we have entire capability to put in objects, create groups of objects. So you have entire things, move them around, attach them to other objects, and then move them entirely on the site. So everything that we have is based on kitbashing to be built on top of the base minions that we have, which is really cool.
I'd love to
bring up.
Yes, Teagan. I think we're probably seeing a lot of the same questions. I'd love to address one of the ones that we're seeing the most, which is, does this just apply to weapon/held items, or like what else does this apply to on the site?
So this applies.
Perfect time to open a new miniature.
Yeah,
I guess
so
if only we had an example of that to show what else.
Yep. So, or you can add a whole bunch of stuff. I'll skip over some of these right now and go to one of our more complex minis right here. So this right here is a mini made entirely in kitbashing right now. I think we've shown it off a little bit before, but just to show real quick, this is what the base model starts as, with nothing added to kitbashing, and then everything done in kitbashing itself can be expanded into this nice, giant, awesome, massive thing. So you can see we have a whole bunch of stuff right here. So we have like spell effects to make clouds coming out the ground here. We have weapons, fire attached to them as well coming out. We have tentacle pieces as well for adding to the site. And all of this as well, if we go to Kitbash, they're all selectable entirely separately. Oops. As well as entirely posable too. So any of the objects that we have that already support posing or our entire objects themselves on the site will be able to be used here or as well too, given some restrictions as well as we go through development and see what's actually possible. But you can add, actually in that same vein, let's start scrolling down. It's hard to find again right now because it's just a list. Basically, it's just stuff dumped from Hero Forge into Kitbashing right now. So we have a lot of stuff, and what I can actually add, let's for instance, there's like a shirt.
Y'all are seeing a lot of items right now.
All right, so for instance, you could add like a shirt to the scene. And all of this comes with its own bones and whatnot that can be totally configured and whatnot. So you can actually start to have individual pieces and create minis out of that. And to the point where you can go really extreme. And so here's a character I whipped up right here. Oh, ignore that. This is Mr. Tenders. So Mr. Tenders is a mini made entirely with kitbashing. There basically is no default character in here whatsoever. And if you look, it's called... All of this is linked together using our joining system that we have for grouping objects. And we've created an entire mini from scratch here. All of this can be moved together and whatnot due to the linkage that we have. And you can even select the individual objects to show as well. Mr. Tenders is, he's not real. He is fake. His arms are bread. His feet are hamburgers.
You've revealed him to be the chicken in human clothing that he is.
He's just a rubber chicken in a human body, you know?
And Q, those are hamburgers for feet, yes.
I feel like we should just drop the mic and leave now.
I know, right? That's the best part. A question that we've been getting a lot. We're getting so many questions from chat, so I don't mean to kind of like disrupt the flow on stuff, but we've had a couple of people ask, can you remove features? So if you want someone to have like sword arms, can you remove their hands and give them swords for hands?
Oh, you could definitely do that. I mean, let's just load up a new mini real quick and go about that. So you got a new mini.
People have asked questions in chat, and I'm trying to get through them as quick as possible. Do not worry about asking them again. Just please don't spam. So I'm keeping an eye on it, and I'll do my best.
Awesome.
Anyway,
so let's take a mini.
Maverick, go ahead.
Let's take off their arms. Let's go to kitbashing. Let's give them a nice axe.
Doing swords for arms immediately. Excellent. Oh, axe for arms.
Give me swords for arms. That's all I want in life.
Yo.
Hype says, can we build a third character out of body parts? I can't tell you not to do that. As much as our lawyers would like to tell you not to make something so horrifying, we can't tell you not to.
The man wants to keep you down on that one. But,
yeah, right. Anarchy.
You.
Build people out of people.
But to speak more to that, there's a launch runway here where first we need to create a shift to a new pricing model. Accommodates kitbashing in a way. We're switching to a more granular scale pricing, and I'll talk about that a little more later. And after that, we'll add the ability to add more characters, so you'll be able to add a third character. And from there, you can take all of those characters and kitbash them in all sorts of ways, like Maverick is showing right now.
I hope you guys are happy with this monstrosity.
I regret asking this question. This has like big Dark Souls boss energy. You know, like I'm feeling my fight or flight kick in, where I'm like, okay, all right, I can take this on.
Yeah, but basically a big important thing for a lot of these features on the site is the fact that everything can be connected together and create your own structures from that to their maneuverability. The other thing as well, this is basically opening up a lot of bones to the site that users typically would not get access to. Like for instance, on the cape or cloak right here, it's still in development for the actual appearances, but you can see we have individual joints and stuff for everything that you can actually move. You start to warp, rotate, and change the, like for instance, the cloak and stuff, and start to pose these individual objects literally however you want. Whatever we have for the base pose controls, pale in comparison to what you can do for the kitbashing as well.
Yeah, I
so
see
the other great
Ruby
thing
in chat says no more glitches, and that's the dream, right? Is we're giving you all the stuff that people have like utilized glitches for before. Like, good
exactly.
luck. My
yes.
challenge to you is find a glitch that you can't do with kitbashing. You can't. Like we're doing. You can't find a glitch because we did the glitch. That is what we're doing here. Maverick, this is just a boring wizard. What am I looking at here?
Yeah, so this is just a regular wizard. Again, nice and base default, nothing special going on. But the thing I want to show here is, again, back to the skeleton system that we have for everything. Still working on getting the actual appearance of this fleshed out. But the idea is all of the major bones that we have on the site that can be posed already are accessible in these menus too. And you can actually go through for selection on these to control all the objects and the minis as you go. Down to the point of, yes, I know this is very requested for a lot of people, individual fingers for all of your movements.
People
so basically
immediately broken finger.
Yeah. The
Break a
first
finger?
time I
Oh, that's
tried to
easy.
use hand posing, I wanted to do a thumbs up, and it was the most. I was like, okay, all right, learning.
It's very easy to break fingers.
I need to get one
Yeah,
of
so we're
those
working
like
on the
wooden
tools.
hands that people have on their desk and just practice, because it's hard to make hands look normal.
Yeah. We'll be working on some tools though to make some of the stuff a little bit easier to use. It's very easy to move the fingers in incorrect directions. It'd be nice to make it a lot easier to move in the correct direction first and then break it second. But yeah, basically the idea is, everything can be posed on the site now. That includes things like, again, this is also pretty highly requested. Legs. You can separate legs entirely, move them however you like now as well too. And the other main thing as well too is you can select entire characters and just move them around. Put them anywhere you want. You can rotate them. You can stick them upside down. You can live in the ground. You have mole people.
Broken legs too. Yes, Night Haunter. I was trying to figure something out with this, and I have a character on mine whose legs are like just 2 little feet behind the ears, torso completely bent in half. It's not fun to look at, but you can do that. If you want to do that, you can do that. We got a question. Sorry, y'all are moving very fast. So again, I'm gonna try my best. If I don't get to a question, feel free to repeat it. But we had a question from Ulin in the Discord about. I lost it, but I remember it. Will there be basic just shapes that you can put in there, just like a basic like triangle shape, square shape to put in, just kind of neutral stuff being added, and then also. A similar question from the same person and that I've seen elsewhere in chat is, could you, for example, remove the sword so you just have the hilt, or can you like split a sword in half? How much can you break down the features?
That's a
Teagan,
great question.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that. And my apologies for my mic earlier; it was on the wrong mic. Yeah, we plan on adding some Kitbash only pieces that are made for kind of useful tools to, say, for example, strands of hair, so you can create your own hairstyles, or weapon pieces. We'll do some kind of breakdown of that, and some of the basic shapes, so donuts and spheres and other primitives in that sense. So we hope to give a little kind of library of those that might not be initially at launch, but it's certainly on our radar over time, just to give you as many options as possible for sure. Though we have maybe really far in the future plans to let you cut stuff up. That's a huge can of worms. So we'll unlikely to let you cut a sword in half anytime soon, but we might do some of that for you so you have the pieces, because we know there was a big want for Weapon Forge after the Kickstarter. But this is kind of our answer to that, in the sense that you can mix and match now anything, not just weapons. And because of the hierarchy you can kind of mash your own weapons together in all sorts of ways.
Now, Maverick, if someone in chat was looking at this and they were like, I love this so much, and they wanted to buy it, what's going to happen if someone tries to buy a Kitbash mini like this?
Yeah, so there's definitely concerns. Of course, a mini pose like this cannot be printed. It is floating in midair and everything.
Well,
so it is a bit of an issue.
It could be printed
However,
as a standee, to
yes.
be fair.
So we will have checks in place for the physical side for some of the orders to prevent them from what's called. We'll have some physical checks in place to make sure that for physical minis, they don't, or we can try to catch some of these errors before they happen. So that way we can make sure we get printed users their minis. However, we do have options to have some of the stuff available still. For instance, standees. Standees have just the clear plastics for everything, so separated minis from the base are no problem for those type of minis.
They're so good. Like, I love that we can print these as acrylic standees. I'm a big standee evangelizer, and being able to print your floating mini like this, your parkour wizard, having the opportunity to print that is very cool to me.
Yep. And then the digital side as well. Any of these floating or objects are totally fine. Or download digital STL files, use them for tokens, anything else, virtual tabletops, stuff like that. You're good to go. But yeah, this does give you the tools to really break your minis in a lot of cases and make them unprintable. So we will be trying to make sure and guide users to making printable minis as much as we can. However, a little bit of it is out of our control at times because we're giving you a lot of tools. So there will be some back and forth as we go through to just try to make sure we can let the users know anytime that they're making minis that, hey, you're brushing up against unprintability here.
We have a question. I actually don't know the answer to this generally from Ruby. Is every mini reviewed by a person before printing?
The answer is no. There's a lot of automated checks, and quite a few minis are when something triggers one of them. But no, we've seen minis that though specifically a human always quality controls it, but not necessarily before the printing part.
A question I'm seeing a lot, and sorry for all of the rapid fire questions. We have so many people that are very passionate about this, and I love it so much. But people are asking, we've seen incredible leg posing on bipedal humanoids, but what's going to happen with stuff like centaurs or snake folk? What's the plan with that?
Well,
those joint chains should be accessible in the same way, pretty much.
Yep,
I don't know if we have any examples of that.
They should be totally accessible as well, just like everything. Anything that basically if you see anything that gets changed in the pose menus as it is, those should basically be repeatable in some form in Kitbashing. I do think though right now they're not quite supported just on our ends. Those are going to take some development time to actually get working. Let me check to see how we are though. Yes, we're missing them getting selected right now, but that will be coming.
I'm going to speak to just Lucifer Morningstar. Get a TLDR so far. Our kitbashing is incredible. You can put pretty much any feature onto pretty much any body and pose it in pretty much any way. Also, this VOD will be stored on Twitch and will be uploaded on YouTube. So if there's particular details that you're looking for, we will have a version of it for you to watch. I just wanted to speak to that super, super quickly. Old Crow Gaming, will armor/clothing be kit bashable? Yes. So we showed it a little bit earlier, but clothing, I had a hair. I clicked on a hairstyle thinking it would go on my mini, and instead it just was floating. So that's an option that I didn't know would happen. So it's everything. And I want to speak to the two questions. I'd love for us to talk about the two questions that I saw Cam put in chat, which are, what about, yes, can you resize hands and feet? Let's start with that one.
Yeah, so everything is resizable. I know getting some super exaggerated shapes is always a demand. But yeah, anything that is selectable for a joint should be totally able to be scaled, just like anything in kitbashing now. So you can take some pretty extreme examples and really blow up your character if you want to. But yeah, scaling for sizing things now will be no problem whatsoever. Do with that what you will.
Oh no. Do with it what you will to a point. This is a real Jeff Goldblum situation. We spent so long asking if we could. That's the direct quote verbatim. The other question that I saw was, what about mounts? Can we, are mounts posable at this point?
They're not currently posable in the development version, but by the time this gets to live, that will be something that is supported. Yes.
Oh God, we have so many questions. Sturge is actually asking, how small can you go?
You can go. Well, let me go back to Mr. Tenders real quick. There's some interesting stuff going on there. So right now, because on our back end, we just can't fully strip out the base mini. If you look through his head here, there's actually an itty bitty mini sitting right there. So this is the actual character that was made with the base features. And then Mr. Tenders was thrown over the top. So you can go literally as small as you want for the most part. We might have some restrictions put in place just to make sure that you can't crunch it down and completely lose it. But for the most part, for getting any size that you desire, it should be possible with kitbashing within a realm of reason. We do have restrictions on the upper end, so you can't make things insanely exaggerated. We do have, let's see if I can show it really well. Oh no, it's locked to it. So if you look around the side here, the still circle, we do have a bounds that objects are restricted to, so you can't actually move them or outside of that for the printability. And if you do get, let's see if I can cram one through it all. No, I think it's just stuck to it. Let's see. No, I can't quite. But yeah, we do have limitations for how far out you can go, but it's pretty generous. Yeah.
I want to first note that Mr. Tenders continues to have layers. Like, oh, you think it's a person? No, it's a chicken in some clothing. Oh, wait, no, it's a tiny person piloting a chicken in some human clothing. It's just, there's a lot of layers to Mr. Tenders, but we will let you select just a base and just start kitbashing onto it in the future, that just isn't something that we've enabled yet, which is why the character existed in the scene at all. Though to speak in general about printability, we'll let you kind of go to town when it comes to the digital things, when it comes to screenshots and so on. Scale can go all over the place, do whatever completely 3D printer breaking things you want until you try to order in a 3D printed material, and then we'll require a much stricter set of constraints. So, hey, these are the things that are hitting outside the bounds, or these are the things that are too small. And we'll also have you go for a little bit of a tutorial, so you'll have to do a little bit of a kitbashing quiz to make sure that you understand the limitations in place, and work with them. We'll like essentially kitbash certify your account, give you a little badge when you take a screenshot, that kind of thing.
A question that we've seen from Win then, and I'm just letting him know that we're about to answer it, is what about bases? Will bases be kitbashable and scalable?
Yeah, I mean, a base is just another object. There's nothing special really about it compared to anything else. Yeah, bases will be totally kitbashable.
Awesome. Crodix asking, can tails also have different scaling on them? Yes. By and large, the 99% of the questions that I'm seeing in chat, the answer is yes. Like, feels so confident that yes.
If you can move it, you can scale it.
Yes. I find actually what you said, Maverick, about thinking about it instead of like, can I move this leg? Thinking about it as like, what has joints, and if it has a joint, it can be moved, whether that joint is like a fishtail, or like a question that we had in chat was about whips and chains. Presumably those will have joints, like the chained whip, I'm assuming, has like a joint on each part of the whip.
Yeah, I'm just gonna search it quickly. Our search isn't ready in this section yet.
Okay, whips and chains, floppy fishy too. Presumably yes. Will weapon kitbashing allow us to remove single blades from double-bladed weapons? Yes. Weapons like the Veil Scimitar.
Not really, in the sense that it's one piece. So unless we add the sub piece deliberately, we're not gonna let you cut pieces apart, at least at the initial launch.
For the most part, kitbashing in general will be additive instead of destructive for removing from anything. So for instance, it's going to be taking a lot of small pieces to make something larger. In this case, I want to kind of touch back. We're talking about the basically weapon building or in the future, and how kitbashing allows us to kind of do that now. So because we allow you to basically make your own skeletons out of pieces now, and create your own characters, this also applies to everything like weapons again as well. So for instance, this is a hodgepodge of guns right here. We got revolvers, we got a horn, we got a harpoon coming out for a gun here. But all this is just individual pieces again, and they're all attached together. So you have one big, whoops, sorry, I got the wrong piece. So you have one big piece that is attached to the hand here. And if I actually go and start posing our hands, you can see we have entire weapons now. They're made just entirely out of pieces that we already have.
God,
so yeah, back to the idea of we will make sure that you guys have basic primitive shapes to kind of construct whatever you need or you want to. All of this will be colorable, as you've seen here too, for all these pieces as well. So you can construct basically anything from scratch if you really want to. Bar really the only limits on size, and then our item limit constraints that we'll have in place. That's about it.
And just speaking to the question from Hongbon in chat, and Board Boxes did confirm, but I did want to confirm again because I think Teagan just nodded. Just regular plain shape. So just like we're going to be adding like a sphere, so people can make a little snowman, or probably way cooler stuff than that. That's just where my mind went first. So yes, we are set with that one. A question that we had earlier in the Discord was, will you be able to save an object? The specific question was, if I group like a gothic mace with an amulet, could I save that as one particular item that you can then import?
while you can't technically save it and swap it over, you can copy the stuff over. So like all of our objects and whatnot that we have, you can copy entire hierarchies of stuff. So I have like a crocodile tail saved here. I can Control C for copy and then paste it into the scene. And now I have a whole another weapon ready to go. And I can do this for any hierarchy of pieces whatsoever. You can copy entire structures that way. And what's really awesome for this too, for copying, let me get rid of it. You can copy it, put it other minis, or make a new mini if you'd like. And paste it right on over. Colors are missing right now. That's just on our end. When this gets to live, that should be working correctly. But yeah, you should be able to swap anything between your files as you want. There's just no import option right now. It's just copy pasting things across. However, that is something, if there is interest in it, we could potentially do in the future.
I want to talk about the mini on screen really quickly too, because we've talked about a lot of, and this was made by our incredible marketing director Fox, but we've shown all these fun, goofy, again, like parkour wizard, Mr. Tenders. You can do all of this wild stuff, but also there's this other really cool narrative component too, where you can use kitbashing, like, what if my wings were knives, which is incredibly dope. But you can also use it to tell a story that maybe with our previous functionality, you weren't able to do so. And I love this mini that Fox put together, because when we were talking about creating minis for this stream and she's like, I'll put something together, I was like, it's gonna be like a mech and it just never occurred to me that like it can also just you can use kitbashing to just tell a story that you weren't able to tell before. And that was like a whole aspect to it that I was like, I love this, and I'm so glad that we get to show this off as well.
That was a big part of the inspiration behind giving such a full suite, is seeing the lengths that Hero Forge folks went to tell the stories they wanted to with the current tools, where items and tails were carefully posed through the body so you could have a bird sitting on your shoulder, or replacing a hand with a gun hand, because that's an integral part of the story of your character. So we really said, okay, there's no end, there's no limit to the amount of storytelling that can happen in this space. We're just going to have to say, open Pandora's box, cuffs off, go to town, create wild things, and tell hopefully some really, really powerful stories as a result.
But yeah, options are definitely pretty endless as well. Again, back to the whole adding extra characters and whatnot, or not only can you take individual parts to build another character from scratch if you wanted to, but any of the double minis that you already have can be posed however you want to. So again, this is just taking what we had already for the two minis side by side that we already support on the side, and using the kitbashing posing to take them off and pose them in new interesting ways that weren't possible before.
We've had a question a couple of times in chat, and I'm so sorry for not addressing it. Feet posing, and specifically toe posing. It looked like feet, yes, toe. We're not quite at toe technology yet.
We haven't achieved toe beans quite yet. The joints don't exist in the feet yet, and the model currently, I believe, has all the toes connected to each other, mostly for printability, because toes are very wee. Those little grapes are too small. But when I saw that question in chat, I immediately wrote it onto my to-do list to investigate that, because it's gonna make sense that you want to do some like interesting feet poses and allow toes to do the same.
Something, if I can just do a quick aside here, is something I just love. I love that you were like, oh yeah, I saw that in chat, and I was like, oh, note to self, I'll do that. Something I love about the Hero Forge team is that we can get feedback from people. I met with our art director just this morning to be like, hey, we got some really cool feedback. Can we consider that? And Nora was like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. I think we can make that happen. And I just love that this team is so like, oh, yeah, that is a good idea. Let's see if we can do that. It's awesome that there's no like, we'll see. We're pretty busy. You really gotta earn it. Like, it's so like, yeah, that's a cool idea. We didn't consider that. Let's make it happen. And I think that's incredibly cool. Yes, you can bend the foot, Eisenherz.
But yeah, for the toes, we will get there probably. It just won't be there immediately right at the start. You might have a little bit of a flap for because you saw how you can have the feet kind of bend a little bit for some of the poses right now. We already got a bone there. We just got to add that in as one option for now. But to actually separate the toes, don't expect that right on release, but that could be a future thing we can add.
We've gotten the question as well about decal kit bashing. So if you had a projected decal on something and then you copy and pasted it, the projection would not move over to the new mini, would it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I haven't thought about that interaction yet. I don't see why not.
Not currently, but we could allow you to do that. We could also make it so you just import the decals, Kitbash decals from one mini to another.
We have more feet questions in chat than I was expecting. I pride myself in the ability to kind of have a finger on the pulse of what the Hero Forge users want. A lot of that. He Who Monkey is asking, can we stretch feet, like make the plantigrade feet into digitigrade? Don't make me say that word out loud. Can we do that?
I should be able to. Let's see. I don't think quite yet for the stretching that you have desired, just because we need to get the toe joint in. But we should be able to in the future. Let's see.
People are asking if you can put eyeball paint on everything, and I'm worried that people are going to start making biblically accurate minis, and we are not. I don't know. Are we putting eyes on things that aren't supposed to have eyes on them? Because I'm
entirely
going to
unrated. Unrelated from kitbashing, but important question nonetheless. No, the eye shader has like some very complex math of how the cornea and the iris like respond to light, so it requires it to be a sphere. There's so many other monsters you can create. Don't worry, you will be able to create absolute abominations without it. You'll be fine with the tool set we give.
This is a massive blow to me personally. So, Maverick, what are you showing off right now?
Just moving bones, moving things around, showing that what stuff you can do now that you couldn't do before, you know?
Is there, so we talked about with Face Customizer the fact that it started out like, we're like, let's have like 5 different heads, and then it became what it is now. Was kitbashing, has it kind of always been this degree, or as we've worked on it, have you been like, we need to keep adding more to this?
It's expanded a lot. The initial offering idea was basically add in rigid body parts that we have, put them on the mini, and that's it, you're good to go. But this has expanded to be far more. Like, we have the entire joint system now for bones, so you can fully control what's already out there. And then we have like the grouping and whatnot now as well, for being able to create hierarchies of stuff, attach them to objects, pose those objects, and have everything move together. Basically, we've put a lot of stuff on top of this now to make it so instead of just making some rigid character, you're creating something that you can then animate later as well too, if that's something you desire.
I'm going to go further back to the origins of kitbashing, which really come from seeing all of the wild posing that folks were doing with the advanced posing. Once upon a time, we used to do kind of freeform Fridays where we tried to kind of break the mold of whatever we were working on just to experiment in some other direction. We do a lot of experimentation still. It's a little less formal. And kitbashing started as sort of a weekend sort of almost project of like, well, what does this look like? And as Maverick describes there, it started off with the very, very basics. And that was a very long time ago now. We've been kind of keeping this one in development for a while because one, it interacts with so many parts of the site. There's a reason there's a bunch of other stuff that came out first. And two, it's like, it has like such potential to break a bunch of other things. So the hardest part of kitbashing isn't actually some of the crazy tools you're seeing right now, which, don't get me wrong, they're really quite difficult to implement. There's some expertise that goes into this, but it is the logistics around allowing minis to be so wild. So one of the big things that we're doing first is changing our entire pricing model to allow for this kind of freedom. So that will be coming this year sometime soon. So look out for that change. We're changing it to be more granular. So little changes based on the amount of volume you use affect the price, as opposed to our current system that's very much like you have a tiny halfling with a big sword, and that halfling immediately costs a whole bunch more because you're using the big sword. We'll actually be looking at the the volume of the material used, the size of the miniature, and the complexity, as opposed to our like current model. So that's one of the really big things that needs to be in place first, along with some other pieces of customer service and like feedback and so on. There's a lot surrounding this project.
There's a couple of people in chat asking about the pricing for digital assets and whether this will affect that at all.
Unsure yet how that ends up factoring in, because like there is like a degree of processing time that goes into the digital assets. There's a storage amount, etc. So the more you add, the more it can cost us. So we'll have to figure out where that one makes sense.
Oh boy, there's so many good questions in chat. We have Wyndon is asking about a body age slider, which I think is moving a little bit away from kitbashing, but that is a very valid question to ask.
We are looking into older bodies currently, especially because now the face customizer goes so far into age.
We've made it so much older, which is awesome. I really like that. A question that we've seen a few times that came up during Face Customizer, and I'm seeing in chat as well now, is this gonna be usable on mobile? This seems like it could be really beefy to run.
The actual processing power needed will not be the thing I think that gets you on mobile. Like, it's not too much more processing intensive. Face Customizer is probably a lot more hard on the hardware, if you will. What's going to get you in mobile is that this is such a powerful tool with such intricate controls that it's just going to be a difficult experience if you're using a tiny device. Like, we're airing into like professional 3D software kind of tool manipulation here. Now we're trying to simplify as much as possible, but it is so advanced, it's going to be a tougher thing to master on mobile.
Yeah, if you've noticed as well too, I came prepared with a whole bunch of different minis already made. That's because while it's awesome as kitbashing is, it takes time to make minis. It's a time-consuming process to actually go through all these. So making lives a bit hard, but yeah.
Although Fox specifically wanted us to call out the fact that really cute mini she made with like the giggle dog with the fennec fox, that took her like 15 minutes. Like, it can be, when I've played around in it, I was like, oh, what hath I wrought? But you can make really cute stuff without spending, because I think people might be looking at this and being like, you can put every feature in every place, every size. It does not have to be like that. You can make something really, really cool relatively easy, but it does really help if you go in knowing what you want to do. Face Customizer or just the site in general, you can be like, click, click, oh, this could look cool. What if I did this? And I think the thing with kit bashing is like, really have your mind palace set ahead of time, and it'll make it a little less overwhelming.
Yeah, Fox this together in 15 minutes. Go ahead.
The important part about this one is that in that 15 minutes is that Fox had never used kitbashing before. This was her first time trying it.
Yes. A question that we got before, I guess. I don't know how to ask this exactly, but right now, we're looking at kitbashing, and it is every single feature, and anything is incredibly posable. And are we going to provide any like guidelines or bumpers or kind of tips within the site to make it a little bit less overwhelming? Like, if you're like, oh, if you're in kitbashing and you want to do finger guns, like, we now have that as a posing option. And then, like, are we going to kind of have these kind of quality of life considerations when we launch it?
Yeah, great question. There's going to be the ability to import poses from other miniatures, including the community library. So everyone who has kitbashing, which will be pro users, will also have access to the community library. So you'll have a great set there. Y'all's do amazing jobs sharing those. I imagine we'll see kitbash pose libraries of different hand poses, etc., that can be potentially imported. In the end, kitbashing is a system that works on top of everything. So once you've learned how to edit one joint, you're going to be able to kind of apply that to just about anything. But I imagine the time it takes to get to where you want is the part that you're going to want the most savings from, and that just comes from sharing and the collaboration between everybody in the community, which is fantastic. It's a huge part of Hero Forge, just that passing a mini back and forward, being, hey, check out this pose. Do you want to use it? Oh, I'll use some of that. I'll start using that as a starting point. Powerful stuff.
I see someone seconding a question, and I don't know what the original question is. Can you please repeat it in chat? I would appreciate that.
I think I understand it, which is we still have the old advanced posing system. And
okay.
yes, our current plan is to keep advanced posing as it is. People are very, very familiar with it. It's a lot simpler than kitbashing. You don't have to learn these kind of fiddly controls. And then kitbashing to be this whole layer on top of that just opens the door wide open for wildness.
Also, I'd love to flag what Mr. D. Sir just said. The APR collection is going to expand exponentially once kitbashing comes out. APR, if people don't know, are advanced posing resources, and it is something entirely created by the community. Where if you're like, hey, I figured out this like finicky pose that has this really cool dynamic to it, they'll just create a mini that you can use for that reason. And if you have any questions about posing, if you want to talk to people who know, they have forgotten more about posing than many of us will ever know, please join the Discord, because that's where the Hero Forge staff, we answer a lot of questions in there. We're pretty active in there. And that's also where we have a huge community of people that, as this stream is happening, they are screenshotting it and talking about it in there and kind of like making sure everyone knows what's happening on this stream. And there's so many good resources in there. So definitely join the Discord if you're not in there already. Does this mean the team will stop making hand poses? I don't know. Actually, does kitbashing mean that we're kind of letting posing be something that is entirely up to the user now?
To some extent, once we, and pun intended, put it into y'all's hands, the amount of content you can generate and share is like absolutely beyond a small team working on these things. So it would seem like not the best use of our time if we put kitbashing out and there's hundreds and hundreds of hand poses out there for us to then make some hand poses. We'd much rather refine features and add features that the community can't contribute to. But all of that said, we are looking into more hand poses, and especially ones that might not necessarily be printable, and what we can do to make those printable, because we saw how much people appreciated and had fun with the glitch that you could turn an item off so they could get the original hand posing under that item. And we also don't want you to have to manually change the hand to something every time. So we're looking into that.
A question that I have is, so we know that kitbashing is going to be pro only. So what happens if someone has kitbashed a mini, shared it as an APR, and then someone who doesn't have kitbashing opens that mini?
That's a great question. We want to handle that as fairly and elegantly as possible, but don't have the clearest path forward yet. It probably will let you open it because we want you to be able to share your minis, but not edit the kitbashing part.
That is very very good to know. I'm just looking through the Discord quickly to see if there's any other.
One thing I do want to emphasize as well too, in terms of people's worry about sharing things between each other, since this does get really complicated or complex for the amount of things that you can make. Accessibility for sharing is a pretty big emphasis for this project as well too. So we will definitely be listening to feedback for what users are looking for ways to share the different parts with each other, and what makes that the cleanest for getting that into your guys' hands. Because right now, again, one thing I want to emphasize is you can already copy things between minis on your local site as it is. We just don't have the ability or quite yet for you to share these objects. You could just potentially share the file with only like the object in it for the time being. That's a good way to pass these objects around, because you can't just import those over entirely. But yeah, or expanding the controls to allow just the community to share a lot of stuff for kitbashing will definitely be something we'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a hard space to navigate. So I understand that we're working on it because we do want people to be able to share stuff. Another question that we had is, two things. One, if someone wanted to take the dragon familiar and make it into a full-size dragon, how big can the familiars go? Maverick, show us the biggest possible dragon. I want a giant pony. And if people in chat are like, that's just a horse. No, it's not. It's a giant pony. It is different. Give me the biggest pony that I can have. Give me photos of Spider-Man in the form of a giant pony.
Anica's making some big requests here, and we haven't tested it on familiars at all, so I'm not actually sure
sorry.
what it'll work.
Don't give me a big pony. Give me a regular sized pony. You've given it to me, and it's perfect, and I love it.
Personally, I want a giant round frog. That's all I've really ever wanted from Hero Forge.
Big, perfectly spherical frogs. That's all I want. With eyes all over its body. Actually, I don't want this. As I start thinking through what that would look like, I actually don't want that.
Wow, we found the line for what Anica doesn't want.
I know. Maverick, just as a heads up, you are muted, so if you were trying to talk, I may have missed that.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
How long have I been muted for?
Not that long. Probably when I started yelling about a large pony.
Okay, cool.
See, now this is a unicorn, and that's not a large. Just kidding.
But yeah, for taking familiars and stuff and scaling them up, that will be coming. This is just a case of our here for Kitbashing touches basically everything on the site. So there's a lot of things that we just kind of have to figure out during the development. This is just one of the cases of I just need to go in now and address this because I didn't even know this was an issue yet. So new thing to fix. But yeah, anything that is added to the site, able to be moved whatsoever, should be basically scaled up infinitely. Let me see what else I could do for something close. Familiars don't work quite yet. I can do, this has wings. That's something.
We get this question quite a lot, and it's not related to kit bashing, but I'd love to still answer it. We get asked a lot, if Hero Forge were ever be not in a browser, if we would ever make an app for it. I have some thoughts about that, but Teagan, if you have like an official response.
We've certainly thought about it. We've certainly looked into it. The first thing to keep in mind is that Hero Forge is huge. Like, there's a bunch of stuff on the server that never has to get loaded. It's a very, very large amount of data. So storing that locally is bad. That's going to be a big old app. Plus, we update Hero Forge constantly, so that app would be just constantly updating. So plus, there's a bunch of live elements like the community library and purchasing that wouldn't work offline. There's so much that feels like it's not worth the development effort there. We've certainly looked into it, but we have a bunch of stuff that's going to just be more interesting, create more powerful tools, be more content that we'd rather focus on than a very long and extensive deep dive, and then having to support that moving forward with the team. So I understand that there's some cases where an app is more powerful, but Hero Forge is already so accessible and so easy to update that keeping it like this, keeping it as easy as going to URL in a browser makes tons and tons of sense for us. So we'd rather continue to optimize Hero Forge and put our efforts into making the browser version better, run in a more streamlined way than trying to do an app.
Yes, I will. I'll also speak to the mobile app thing, because that's something that I have background in, dealing with any sort of mobile app store adds layers and layers and layers of difficulty, and it would take a lot of time to navigate that space when we could be making more cool, we could be putting eyes on things. So would you rather have us in an app store, or would you rather have eyes on things that aren't supposed to have eyes on them? That is the question. So yes, I'm so sorry, Fluff. I actually wrote your question down twice, I realize. Question we've been getting in chat is numerical values for resizing things, because right now it looks like it's a lot of the sort of grab and pull. So can we have just a value that you type in to get things identical?
I don't see why not. Let me write that down.
These streams are so fun. I love this. Okay, next question that I have. I've been writing down a bunch of them as they've been coming through, so appreciate your patience if we miss them the first time. That's why I like to remind people to post them again if we miss them. What about, so Maverick, earlier you showed that there's kind of that boundary line. You can see it sort of in brown on the side. What is the boundary in inches?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. I could get an answer for the Discord later. But that's also subject to change as it is right now, so I don't have a firm answer on that currently.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure, but it will be pretty close to the maximum size that you can make a Hero Forge Mini currently. If you bump that slider all the way up for height and then add the biggest wings, that's about where you're going to hit in terms of the bounds of kitbashing.
What I could do real quick to help you guys, if you want an easy answer to screenshot from the stream, you go straight up and down so you can see the size of the base. If any of you guys have your own minis right here, it's about what, 2.5 size the base on each side that gets added on right now. And it is a sphere around the mini right now too.
If you actually, can you do that overhead view again? Just really quickly, because then what I can do is it's a little cut off. So I'm just trying to show people approximately what it's going to look like. So I think people have a pretty good view of it there.
I should mention that circle that I put in there was not measured to the actual bounds. And was just a visual test for like what the bounds may look like, so subject to change. Can't answer that yet.
That is unfortunately a vibe circle where it's like, this vibe felt right, and those do not hold up in the court of law.
Yeah,
yes.
A lot of the limitations right now are just, well, that feels good.
Yeah, you're like, well, we'll start with this. That's version 1 of everything, right? We're like, this feels approximate. So yes, Tap Wada, I'm so sorry. I have your question written down as well. Smoke, ice, muzzle flash effects. Will any sort of spell effects, muzzle flash stuff be posable as well?
Yep, all that stuff be entirely posable. Loading a mini right now. Just give me a sec to get back up. But any of the spell effects that already exist are already in kitbashing as it is. Like this menu, for instance, already has.
I'll riff off what Anica was saying earlier, which is just nearly 99% of the questions in chat. The answer is yes. Like, you can do all these things. If you can scale this thing, you can scale this other thing, etc. The many requests for additional features to Hero Forge, we basically kind of lumped them all into one. Oh wait, we can do all of this with kitbashing, and it means that we don't have to make Hero Forge UI necessarily that much more complicated for average folks. We can just give these powerful tools and things like decorative hair elements, flowers and jewels in the hair, animals on shoulders, the ability to pose legs, characters riding centaurs, blades attached to the sides of boots or gloves, like magic coming out of the mouth, so like breathing fire, or monstrous body proportions. They're all possible with kitbashing. I also imagine there's a lot of stuff possible that we can't even imagine. We already see creations that blow our minds and we don't know how they happened, so y'all are gonna do some wildly exciting things with these tools.
Absolutely wild. A question that we've gotten a few times is, did we add, specifically about wing joints, but did we add any more joints into features that were already on the site for kitbashing? Maybe focus on wings, but just kind of generally.
So in general, kitbashing is basically just additive on top of the site as it is. So there hasn't been really anything added to the other sections of the site for kitbashing specifically. Most of it just getting lumped in, thrown in here as it is. But a lot of the features, again, that like people have requested for other parts of the site are effectively going to be being able to be handled through kitbashing as well, since we're giving you so many tools to open up the options. So yeah, like another example, again, wings. As long as we got bones in the wings, they'll be editable.
Though one of the things that's making kitbashing particularly difficult is that once we release it, every bone on the site has to stay as it is. We can't add new bones to things. So we're doing kind of an inventory, like full look at what we've got and what needs to be upgraded before kitbashing comes out. So that will mean adding more joints to skirts, for example, that like creates a simpler system there. And similarly, we're looking into wings as well. So this really works on top of everything that exists in a way that like we need to have it so good. So there's a lot other than kitbashing, we need to finish before we can release it.
Cool. Maverick, you are muted. I don't know if you know that or not, but I just wanted to let you know. But yeah, it does sound like we can add bones, but we just can't take them away, which is very good to know. We saw, Mel asked, we've kind of said a few times that you can do everything with some exceptions. Can we expand on what the exceptions are? If I had to take a guess, it's probably just like, there might be some stuff that we can't do. Are there specific exceptions that you have in mind, Teagan, when you say, like, you can do anything except for this?
Most of the exceptions end up being printing related, 3D printing related. Like our chicken friend here is not 3D printable right now from the floating, etc. So like there will be a lot more constraints as soon as you try to make it real, but otherwise really we just give you controls of the joints and you go ahead and scale them in all sorts of weird ways, and cause yourself a lot of trouble sometimes, and hopefully not as too much trouble.
Ross of the Year is asking, can you add even more arms than the 6? Yes.
Interesting question.
As we add,
yes.
Yeah, you should be able to, but not currently. We don't have support, or this may not be in initially at release, because we will have just a subcategory of available items initially that will get expanded over time as we are more comfortable releasing things that have permanent ramifications. But it will come, just maybe not right at the initial release.
We'll essentially just give you the library of prosthetic limbs that currently you can add on top of your limbs. So you'll just have that. And one of them's a realistic looking one. So yeah.
So we have gone through a lot of the questions that we had prepared. We have gone through a lot of the questions that we've seen in chat. Some of the ones that I'm starting to see are kind of repeats of earlier, and we can continue to answer them. But again, as I mentioned earlier, if you were not in chat, this will be a VOD that you can go back and watch after the fact. So if there's any stuff that you may have shown up late and you're not sure, we will probably have answered it earlier in the stream. But Ruby asks a really good question. Will you be able to mirror individual pieces?
Can you repeat that? You cut out a little bit there.
Yeah, will you be able to mirror individual pieces? So if you get it perfectly on one side, is there like a mirror button to do on the other?
Yeah, so we actually have already in the details options to mirror on axes for different stuff and flip them around. So yeah, any mirroring that you need will be there. It's a little bit buggy to use right now, so I haven't been showing off, but yeah, that is there for you guys.
Wonderful. My camera just froze for a second, but luckily it froze more or less in a flattering way, so I'm unconcerned about that. In the meantime, Fluff is asking, could we just get a scroll down of the items just to show how many there are?
Sure. We're gonna be here a while. Keep in mind, this is most items just kind of thrown in right now. We do need to work on the organization, so it's easier to pick through. That's gonna come with time. But there's a lot.
Some of these will not be available initially at launch.
Yeah.
And
speaking of launch, I just want to kind of give a very, very broad overview. First, we don't release things until they're done, and we don't crunch the team to get them done for times that we set, because gosh, things always take longer to refine than one would estimate. So this will be out when it's ready. We will put Kitbashing out when we are very confident that it is good to go. As we do with other things, even Face Customizer, we put it out when we were confident that the beta was ready to test. It was ready to have an opt-in thing as opposed to a full site thing, and we'll go from there with Face Customizer 2. So first, thank you for your patience as we create the best working conditions for the team that we can, so that they can give everything they've got during working hours to creating these really, really cool tools. But then kitbashing, there's a few things that kind of need to go in place first. So the pricing model change will be a really, really big one. And that's really important because kitbashing allows for essentially infinite amounts of granularity for scale. So our current pricing model, if you added a sword, it's now XL absolutely doesn't work for kitbashing. You might have taken that sword and made it small or much, much larger, etc. Very incompatible. So we'll be looking at the volume, the complexity, and the bounds of the model for the new pricing model that will be granular and we think just sort of better overall. So we need to get that out. That'll be this year, we hope. And then there's a lot of other updates to the model, like I was talking about. We need to redo certain parts of the rigs, add more joints to certain things, and shore up a lot of those bases so we have a good foundation for kitbashing. The tools are all there already, but creating that foundation is a site-wide effort. And then we'll finally be allowed to release kitbashing GLs. We cannot wait. Trust us, we are as excited as y'all are about getting it to you, because like I can't wait to see what you're going to make. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to be up way early the morning that kitbashing is first out in early access, and I'm just going to be like just so excited to scroll. I cannot wait for that. But that's very likely going to be a next year thing, given all those pieces that we have to get in place.
Yeah, Top Hat. I love that this is the thing that you're most excited about. Is we'll be able to recreate that photo of a pair of frozen jeans standing up in the snow. You will. If that is what makes your heart sing, you can do that. And that is what I love. XP Guild, can we create monsters that are non-humanoids? The world is truly your oyster. With that, folks, we've answered pretty much all the questions that we were able to answer in chat. We have seen the gauntlet of incredible things that you can do with the site, from wings made out of knives to guns made out of more guns to just an incredible giggle dog and their wonderful fennec fox friend. And now we've got our frozen pants, which was really, I think showing that last was great, because I know that that's what everyone was here for. And showing it, if we would have showed it at the start, no one would have kept watching. So I am so glad that we ended with that. Teagan, Maverick, did you have any, as we're kind of wrapping up here? And again, people, if you had a question in chat that we were not able to answer, feel free to join the Discord. You can ask it in there. Some of the questions we can't answer. It might be stuff that we don't know yet, or we just can't really talk about in public. But that is definitely a resource that we are active in. But did either of you have any last things you wanted to say about kitbashing?
Yeah, so kitbashing is coming along great, but again, for everyone, it is still very much in development. We're working on adding features to it still, improving things, making it a lot easier to just manipulate and use things in general. But yeah, the entire process as we continue through to the final product, we are always looking for feedback. I want to emphasize, I'm constantly checking our Discord, Reddit, the Facebook group as well, and see what people are posting in there. So if you're ever looking for ears and whatnot for things to potentially get in, please keep being vocal in the community, and we will be listening.
First off, it's a tragedy that this is pants and not frozen jorts. Jorts can get frozen standing upright too.
Teagan, my heart was just starting to heal, and you had to rip it open with the reminder that we do not have enough jorts. I need biblically accurate jorts covered in eyes, and I need it now. That's probably why my camera stopped working, because I slammed my hand on my desk with rage because I don't have jorts covered with eyes, and you had to remind me. I'm getting heated.
Biblically accurate jorts, very most critical feature. Maverick, we're just gonna stop development and everything else. Get on that. It's the
Actually,
only way.
It's perfect. There's dozens of people who want it. Dozens.
There are ones of us in the world. We got a question from Seraph that we've actually kind of gotten before. Will we be able to do heavier bodies with this? Will we be able to do fatter bodies with kitbashing?
Potentially not for the initial launch. We will likely give you the joints that allow for the frame changes, so you can push them further than some of the sliders. But we are looking into that in general. We do want to represent diversity of all sorts of body types. Though, to wrap things up a little more, I want to do a huge shout out to Luke, who I think is in chat, who's one of the primary developers on kitbashing as well, and has done amazing work to take this incredibly complex tech to where it is today. So nicely done. And then the entire team surrounding Hero Forge to put in the foundations, the art library, and all the pieces to make something like this even possible is worth shouting out and then some.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Teagan. It's been really nice seeing people not just ask questions in chat, but also, especially when you were talking about, hey, this is kind of the timeline on this because we want to avoid crunch. It was really, really wonderful. It was really, sorry, I'm continuing to read chat. Focus. It was so nice seeing how positive people were about, like, yeah, avoid crunch. Like, we appreciate everything that you're doing and do it on a timeline that works for you. And we appreciate people's, we just thank you. Thank you for remembering that we're people and we want to make something really cool for you, but we also want to maintain good work-life balance. So we appreciate y'all so much. I think that about wraps up everything Kitbashing related. If you are in chat and you're not in the Hero Forge Discord, again, I strongly recommend joining it. We will be in there, you know, giving kind of updates on Kitbashing, answering questions. If I've seen some questions about Face Customizer, we can probably answer those in there too. It's a really good community, so definitely get in there. And with that, I believe this thus concludes our Kitbashing sneak peek. Teagan and Maverick, thank you so much for making dope minis, answering all these questions, and joining me on this stream. This was an absolute blast.
Thank you, Anica. Thank you, Maverick. Y'all's are fantastic. And Maverick, thank you for being at the helms of this. You gave us a tour de force of this wildness, so much appreciated.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
All right. Thanks, y'all. I will see you tomorrow for a mini painting stream. But for tonight, join the Discord. We'll see you in there. And take care of yourselves. We cannot wait to see the incredible things that y'all make with Kitbashing. So bye, y'all. Have a nice night.